Good afternoon. This is your host, Katrina Madewell, and you're listening to Tampa Home Talk. You can also catch us up on our social profiles at TampaHometalk.com, on Facebook, which is Tampa Home Talk, and on Twitter at Tampa Home Talk. Today in studio, we're going to be bringing you a great show with regards to credit, with regards to collection rights, and with regard to just fair debt collection practices. So in studio today, we have Laurie Zoock. She is with Credit Education Consultants. We also have Jerry Davies with Davies and Kerr Consulting. They're a tax planning and CPA firm in the Tampa area. And Paul Fowkes with Disparti, Fowkes, and Hasanbasic. They are attorneys that predominantly go after collection agencies that don't follow the rules. So you'll have a great time listening to our show today with these guys. So I'm going to kick it off with Laurie this morning. Laurie, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And tell me, how did you get started with Credit Education Consultants? I know the credit part's an important part to you, like it is with me.
Right. Well, originally I was licensed as a realtor. I never actually worked as a realtor, but I worked on a team where the realtor had a credit person trying to help people in bad credit situations. And out of that ultimately came me working on my own as an educational consultant for the past 8 years. So what I try and do is explain to people, there's no such thing as credit repair. If you think it's going to disappear overnight and your scores are going to go up 200 points and you read all that stuff on Craigslist, you're in a lot of trouble.
Well, we tell people usually if you have jacked up credit and you got a lot of stuff on there, typically it didn't get like that overnight, so it's not going to get off overnight. Right? It's a process.
It's a long process depending upon the customer's situation. Exactly.
So talk a little bit about this. I know people, well, first of all, everyone's entitled to a free credit report every year.
They are. The real one is annualcreditreport.com, and that will once a year give you your free reports. It does not give you the scores that you have to purchase separately, but you should be pulling those reports at least once a year to see what's actually on the report. Otherwise, you might have a nasty surprise when you go to, try and purchase something and get a loan.
Well, I mean, I've seen horrible cases, too, of identity theft and that kind of stuff. So there's so many reasons why you should be checking your credit report at a minimum once a year. I personally like to check mine twice a year. And I usually pull the mortgage report because I do want to see where the scores are. And I want to see, just make sure there's nothing on there it's not supposed to be. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception. And sometimes people think that if they go to annual credit report, if they let a lot of people pull their credit, that it's going to impact their score. Do you want to share on that?
Sure. If you pull your own credit, there's no impact to your scores. But if you have a lender pull your credit, it's usually a 2 to 5 point hit off your scores. So you have to be careful.
Now, I know at some point they were trying, and I think a couple of the bureaus are doing this. They're actually acknowledging like several mortgage credit repulls within a certain period of time, and also for cars, and trying to acknowledge them as one particular inquiry. So
right. Yeah. My understanding is if it's through the same mortgage person within that 3-week period, you're fine. But when you start shopping around and going to different companies, each of those lenders is putting a hit against you. So if it's 2 to 5 points and you've gone to 10 different lenders, you could get hit up to 50 points. Now you start to look risky to any other lender that's looking at your reports for that loan. So really, you should limit inquiries to about 3 times a year is considered the maximum.
I mean, the best thing to do, really, if you are looking to get a mortgage or buy something and you want to see where your scores are, is really just to pull it, analyze it, and if there's some stuff on there that you need to clean up, work with somebody like Laurie, or, we have people, we work with our mortgage people a lot of times will help you get on track. If it's too much in detail, then we obviously need to refer you out. But they'll help you put together a plan to get your stuff where it needs to be, and then it's just a matter of maintaining it. This is one of the goals for our show. We want to help you maintain good credit.
Exactly, and that's what I try to do with clients is it's not just about getting into the house. Obviously for realtors and mortgage people, you want to help your clients do that. But the reason I'm called Credit Education Consultants is we do it in tandem because I want you to learn how to do that so that you're on track forever and you'll never want to go through it again because once you understand the process, you're gonna stay on track.
This is a really big one. So if you're listening right now, you'll want to pay attention to this next part because a lot of people think, like, I'm sure people we see very often where people, maybe when they're younger, they kind of botch up their credit. Maybe they get credit cards in college, right? Lori, you and I talked about that.
Right.
And they have this big jacked up credit, report at some point that needs fixing. So there may be some collections or something on that. So the one thing that I want to share, and this is a really important part, and I know that Paul's also going to talk about this today too, but if someone's at that place and they have, whether it's one collection or maybe they have pages full of collections or medical or whatever, and they're at the place where they really want to start cleaning up their credit report, let's talk about paying those collections off. Because I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I'll just settle them or I'll pay them off one by one and do the right thing, which it is, but there's an approach that you should be taking to that.
Right. For me, the worst case scenario is when a client comes to me and they've paid off all of their collections and they didn't negotiate for how it would be reported or whether it would be deleted. That's one issue in itself. So, for example, if you've just paid off all of your collections, you think, hey, my score is going to go up because all of the debts have zeroed out. Well, it's sort of double jeopardy there because in the FICO scoring model, which is the company that makes the numbers that all the credit bureaus use, the date comes current from an old debt to when you paid it, and that drops the FICO scores like the bomb. So you have to be aware that you can negotiate. Now, one of the things I think you're going to have Paul talk about, who's an attorney, is what happens when a debt collector is doing something illegal and scares, the client. And I've had clients call me in tears saying, oh my God, they're threatening to sue me. They're going to come beat me up. They're calling my family members, my boss.
If you're listening to Tampa Home Talk right now and you've experienced this or you know someone that has, we're going to talk about this and you'll want to hear the next part of our show where we get into a little bit more detail on that. But specifically talking about the collection items. And so before you settle those, you really want to get with somebody that does this every day for a living, right? Like Laurie,
right?
Because she's going to be able to help you get your credit report cleaned up much faster and much more effectively than you're going to be able to do it on your own, right?
Exactly. That's what I do.
Just like me, I know a lot about credit, but I would never say, oh, I know more about credit than you do because my forte is real estate. Just like contracts, I'm going to know more about that stuff hands down than you are. It's just the way it goes.
That's why I wouldn't buy my own house without a realtor. So, yes.
So a lot of times too, and this is kind of new of the last couple years with regards to comments and consumer statements on the credit report or people disputing information, right? Because I think that was a big thing a while back. People going through credit repair agencies and they actually dispute things. Can you talk about that and the comments on the credit report?
Well, first off, the comments on if you're putting in a dispute in the comments section on the credit report, hate to tell you, it really means nothing. The lenders don't look at that; they look at the numbers and the credit lines. So that's a problem. If I were a lender, I'd want to read it, but the majority of them, it doesn't go into play.
Here's the thing, too. There was an FHA guideline that took place a couple of years back, and I think it may have actually rolled into conventional now, too. But if you have anything that you have those comments on a line item on your credit where you're disputing things, those have to be removed before you can get a mortgage. And sometimes that can be a process. Right.
That's correct. And there are some simple ways to do it. That's what I teach people how to do is I'm sort of like the expedited guide to understanding credit and being able to resolve your issues.
Now, talk about credit scoring, because I think people say, oh, I have a good credit score, but they don't even know what a good credit score is.
Well, FICO is the most widely used credit scores. There are other credit scores, but FICO goes from 350 up to 850. So,
which, by the way, for the record, since credit scores have been in existence, I've never seen a 350 and I've never seen an 850. So on a handful of bureaus, and I'm talking literally less than 5, as long as credit scores have been in existence, we've seen somebody with all 8s, and that's stellar.
Right. I'm in the all 8s range, but mine was kind of accidental. But
you're less than 2% for sure of the population.
Probably, but I'm a crazy credit person, so that's why I've seen as low as the mid 4s.
Yes,
and most of my clients fall in I'm going to say the mid 5s to the mid 6s.
Now, ideally, 720 or above is excellent.
Right, 720 above is excellent, but 780 is considered platinum.
Right. And then, so if you're below a 620, we're probably going to have to work on you if you want to get a mortgage. So just keep that in mind. When we come back in just a moment, we're going to be talking about some further things that you should know if you have some of these collectors calling you or calling your family members, calling you late at night, threatening you. There's a lot of laws that protect you as a consumer that actually say that these are a no-no. And we have an attorney in here today that does nothing but this every day for a living. I'm excited to have him share with you in just a minute. We'll be back in just a second on Tampa Home Talk.
You've heard this before. Interest rates are at all-time record lows. But if your interest rate is 4% or above, you owe it to yourself to call Silverton Mortgage Specialist. Silverton is a direct lender, and the best part about this is that the entire loan process is handled in-house. From application to close, we do it all in the same building, which means that our loans close fast and our clients know what's going on every step of the way. Our contact info is located on TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show. What makes Silverton different? Products. We offer VA, FHA, USDA, and conventional loans pricing. Best rates with the lowest closing cost. Process everything in-house. It's handled right here and not outsourced to anyone that no one can reach. This way we can avoid surprises. Our people are simply the best, and we know you'll agree. What will closing Silverton Mortgage Specialist mean to you? A smooth process, real home loan value, and personal attention from real professionals. Silverton Mortgage Specialists are here to serve you. Visit TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show for all of our contact details. NMLS 109600 is an equal housing lender and Florida and Georgia residential mortgage licensee.
Hi, this is Aaron Davis, owner of Hillsborough Title. Hillsborough Title is a local family-owned title agency here in Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. We've served Tampa Bay area for over 30 years. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Call us at 813-712-8888 or visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services, where we offer full inspections and insurance inspections. Give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
Hi, welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. This is Katrina Madewell, your host. In studio today, we have Laurie Zoock with Credit Education Consultants, Jerry Davies with Davies and Kerr Consulting, and Paul Fowkes with Disparti, Fowkes, and Hasanbasic. They're attorneys that fight with collection companies. So if you missed part of our first segment, we were talking all about your FICO score, things you can do to get it higher, a lot of the frequently asked questions and things that people don't know pertaining to it. So if you missed any part of our show or you're in and out of the car and you can't catch the whole thing, please look for it. We are on a podcast and we do push it also back to our website on TampaHometalk.com. So the FICO score, and we were just talking about this during the break, but I've seen a pretty substantial difference where credit reports were pulled from, especially the consumer bureaus that they get from the credit agencies directly where they can pay for the score. But from the mortgage scores, they can be very, very different. And I find a lot of times the mortgage scores tend to be a little lower than what the consumer scores are. You want to talk about that and why there's three different scores?
Yes. FICO, Fair Isaac Company is the company that developed the scores probably about 40 or so years ago. But each credit bureau, there are three major ones, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. They slightly modified the FICO to fit whatever profile they have. Then additionally, the reason why each of those scores are different is because not every company subscribes to all three credit bureaus. In other words, they're paying to subscribe. So they may only pay for one or two and not all three credit bureaus. So can be why your numbers are different.
Plus, their algorithms, like you said, are different.
Correct.
And it's like big top secret. They'll never tell anybody like how they calculate the scores. So.
Exactly. They keep everything secret, so you don't know.
People ask us a lot of times, how do they calculate the score? Good luck with that one, because we don't know how they get the score. They just get it, and they don't tell us how it happens.
Right.
So 1 point. Sometimes 1 point can mean a huge difference, especially if you're trying to get a loan or a mortgage loan You want to share on that?
Sure. 1 point will make the difference between getting that loan and not. 1 point can make the difference between getting the next lowest interest rate break. People don't realize how important that 1 point is. And sometimes it's something really simple that you can do for that 1 point. But because a lot of what's out publicly, for example, people research on the internet or they read books, a lot of that information I find is wrong, because I've been doing this for a long time. And if you do the wrong thing, you may have just dropped your score 20 points. So you have to be very careful what you're doing and do something correct in order to raise it, hopefully more than 1 point.
Now, it also affects a lot of everyday things too.
Yes.
Correct? So like insurance.
Oh, insurance, employment. There are companies that for high-paying jobs, probably government jobs, they will pull your credit. They have to ask your permission first. It's called permissible purpose. Car insurance, homeowners insurance. So any type of loan, your credit cards, your interest rate is determined by those FICO scores.
So you may be listening to Tampa Home Talk right now in the car thinking, well, I already have a house, so it really doesn't pertain to me, but it does. If you can get your credit score up, sometimes even 10 or 20 points, it can make a huge difference in what you pay every month.
Well, if you can read different statistics, but I've read that the average person has anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 in credit card debt at any given time. I find that a scary number because most people pay interest rates usually between 16 and 20%, although it can be considerably higher. You can't live on credit cards and think of it as free money. And that's what a lot of people do. And I say, why do you want to go out and work 2 jobs to pay all of these high interest rates? If you learn how to manage your finances, your money, and learn how to manage your credit, you won't be paying. I'm sure if I put together a chart, it would frighten people. I do have a chart for mortgages based on interest rate, and it can show in some cases you're going to pay triple the amount of that house. You don't realize that. Most people think, what am I paying month to month? I'm thinking, what am I paying for the whole house?
Yeah, it's kind of a bittersweet thing if you look at that truth in lending, which is what you're talking about. It matters. So, if you can pay cash, that's awesome, but most of us can't. So I think the idea between, getting financing at record low rates right now versus waiting till you have enough cash, there's a fine line between the two. So obviously the faster you can pay it off, the better, because these are simple interest loans and you'll pay interest for the amount of time that you borrow the money. Right. So talk about the balance on your credit cards and that type of stuff and how that impacts the score, because it has a big impact. That
has a huge impact. First off, if you are using more than 25% of your available limit, let's say you have a credit card and you have a $1,000 limit, if you're going to apply for a loan, in order to boost your FICO scores, you want to stay at less than 25%. But here's the kicker. Most people pay off. You want to leave a small balance. So stay at least 25%, which would be $250 or less. But if you don't leave that small balance, your scores will actually drop. I can't tell you why, other than that's what happens.
Well, it shows not use of credit. And the credit bureaus, they're reporting on a model that someone is worthy of credit. So basically they're borrowing money, they're repaying it on time every month. So if you're not showing a history of that, it will obviously drop the score.
Right.
And then eventually, if you don't use credit, your scores will actually go away. You won't have any score.
Right, they will, and credit card companies, if it's inactive, may actually close out your accounts. And then close by credit grantor, or even if you close it yourself, guess what? It's a FICO score hit. Everything's a FICO score hit.
My suggestion is, and you can feel free to chime in or correct me if you don't feel the same, but, the goals of our show are to help people maintain good credit, live within their means, and build wealth. And so I kind of go by my own principles and a lot of things that I've learned over the years. And really, 2 credit cards, I think, is plenty. And you could put your everyday expenses on that you're going to buy anyway, like your gas. Your groceries.
Right, and I exactly agree with that. You should have a maximum of 2 major credit cards. 1 small credit card is okay. Manage them responsibly. And I'm even going to give you a simple trick, because one of the questions or one of the problems I see a lot is that people miss the credit card payment. So what if it didn't come in the mail? In that contract that you initially signed, it says you are responsible to make the payment on that date. So what I do is every other week I just make a credit card payment if I've used it. That way I'm paying twice a month. I will never have a late payment.
Yeah, I know you're not a big fan of auto drafting. There's a big difference between letting somebody swipe your account and setting up bill pay, right, with your bank. So we personally set up bill pay, and sometimes we were talking about this. I actually get a check back because I've overpaid my credit card.
Right. That's good that you're getting the check back. I personally don't like anything auto draft. I don't like the electronic funds transfers. I've had problems in the past, so I like to actually write the check out, have the actual copy show up in my banking statement so I can check it against what comes in on my credit card statements, which is something a lot of people don't do. They don't even check their credit card statements.
Right, but if you're the type of person you get busy, or if you may have missed a payment before because you got busy, it's way better to set it up on bill pay with your bank than it is to miss a payment.
Right, that missed payment could drop you 20, 30 points.
So if someone's had a bankruptcy, can you talk about the impact on that? Like, people think, oh, I've had a bankruptcy, it's going to stay on there forever.
Sure. Well, a Chapter 13 can stay on for 10 years, and a Chapter 13 can stay on for 7 years, but it'll stay on your report for a long enough time. A Chapter 7 total liquidation actually can help you within a few months. It wipes everything out. You'll get a fresh start. Whereas a Chapter 13 is a repayment plan. It's going to be on your report for a long time, and your scores will be low.
And there's some things you need to know after you've had a bankruptcy on how you can get your credit back on track, because people will lend you money after you've had a bankruptcy, but they want to see a responsible payment history. We're going to talk more about this and collection companies actually deleting things on your bureau, as well as debt collectors harassing you and what you can do about it as the consumer. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. We'll be back in just a minute with Paul Fowkes.
You're buying a house. Congratulations. So while you're worrying about the paperwork, leave the moving part to us. We're Woody & Sons Moving Company, a Florida licensed and insured mover, and we offer same-day written estimates. Plus, no sneaky mileage, stairs, or additional stop fees. All we ask is that you check out our great ratings on Google and Angie's List, then go to woodyandsons.com to learn more. Whether you need a full-service pack and move or some extra hands, at Woody & Sons Moving Company, we move you.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services. We're so glad that you're listening today, that we're offering you a special deal. If you're purchasing a home, you can have $50 off your full home inspection. And if you're already a client of ours, we're offering 10% off of any other service that we offer. Just give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
Aaron Davis here, owner of Hillsborough Title, serving all of Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
This is Michael J. Mayer, #1 international best-selling author of 7L, the 7 levels of communication, with the subtitle of Go From Relationships to Referrals. And someone who knows how to go from relationships to referrals is your host for Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell. Listen, tell your friends, spread the word. You need to listen to Tampa Home Talk every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m.
Hi, this is Katrina Madewell. Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. In studio today, we have Laurie Zoock with Credit Education Consultants, Jerry Davies with Davies & Kerr Consulting, and Paul Fowkes with Disparti, Fowkes, and Hasanbasic. So where we left off, we were discussing people with collections and how you can resolve that stuff and what happens when the collectors get aggressive. And so I know Laurie has a really great story that she can share on a client that they worked with, that as a client you were actually with, and the collection agency called.
The collection agency happened to call while we were together, and the client was not on speakerphone. And the woman was from a collection agency collecting a debt that was from a credit card company. But she literally was screaming through the phone to my client saying, "You're a liar, you're a cheater, you stole the money from the credit card company, and you're in a lot of trouble." I mean, basically threatening her, very abusive. And at that point, when I know that there's a violation, first thing we do is go over to the attorney firm and say, "Think we got one? Now you guys," they pick it up from there. And that's what Paul does.
So Paul, what happens like in this particular case where a collector is calling and they're threatening, they're calling them a deadbeat, and they're calling them names, and they're doing all this stuff? Like, what's the next process when they come to you?
Well, that definitely would be considered a violation of what we call the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. In other words, I'll call it the FDCPA, and that would be considered harassment. So if they came to us, the consumer came to us with that particular story that Laurie just shared, what we would do is we would turn around and file a lawsuit against this particular collection agency. And, when the agent, what they're entitled, well, first of all, I'll back up here to give you a better understanding what the FDCPA is. The FDCPA was enacted back in 1977 to eliminate deceptive and abusive practices by collection agencies when they're trying to collect a debt. And the law, I'll give a nutshell version of it, is divided into 3 broad categories. You have misrepresentation, which means, in other words, they're lying to you to try to get you to pay the money. And you got to think about the debt collector in this circumstance. A lot of them are based on commission, so they're going to try to do everything to try to get the consumer to pay that particular bill. Some examples of misrepresentation would be if the collector calls the person and says, "Hey, I'm calling from a lawyer's office," when they're not calling from a lawyer's office. Or
so that's misrepresentation in some form or another.
That's right. Yeah, and I like to, dumb it up a little bit and say it's, in other words, they're lying to you.
Mm-hmm. It happens. I mean, a lot every day. I'm sure you see this stuff every day.
All the time. And the one thing, consumers really don't know about this law that protects them. So I'm glad you had me on the show so we can share that to consumers, to let them know that this is out there, to protect them and let them know they can turn the tables on, debt collectors.
Thank you for joining us here at Tampa Home Talk. I appreciate you taking an hour out of your day to be with us to share on this. So that they're not allowed to use foul, abusive language. They're not allowed to cuss you, right?
That's true. And that goes into the second category.
Okay.
The second category would be harassment. And harassment takes on a variety of forms. And what you just alluded to, using profane or abusive language, I mean, whatever basically is outside of the norm, whatever you think may be harassing or abusive, if you experience something like that, I think you should definitely call an attorney.
And if you call us, we will connect you with Disparti folks and Hasanbasic. They do this every day. This is their main area of practice, is going after debt collectors that don't follow the rules.
Yes, and to go back to misrepresentation, and some other common examples would be, I get calls all the time saying debt collectors called me and said they're going to garnish my wages. But how can they do that when there's no judgment? I mean, first of all, you have to have a judgment against the particular individual before you can actually garnish the wages. So when they sit there and threaten you on the phone that they're going to garnish your wages, that's a lie. And they're just trying to get you to pay the money.
So that can open that company up for a lawsuit.
Oh, most certainly.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, but I'm going to interrupt you just for a second. I think most people panic when they get those phone calls. They're afraid, so they don't know what to do.
Yes, I definitely agree with that.
Now, they can. There's instances where they can. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for this particular scenario we're talking about now, they can't just make those threats.
Correct. Unless they had a judgment.
Right.
Like you were talking about. And another thing would be, what we're seeing a lot of is that debt collectors are actually adding additional charges to the original balance that shouldn't be added.
I see that all the time.
Yep.
So what are those? Are they allowed to tack on penalties and fines and late fees and just keep accruing all these fees?
Well, they're allowed to if the underlying agreement between the consumer and the creditor calls for that. But sometimes that underlying agreement does not have those particular terms and conditions where they can add those particular charges. So in that case, that would definitely be a violation. And it happens a lot with the cell phone providers like Verizon, AT&T. We're involved in a lawsuit right now with a particular collection agency that they sent out a dunning letter. What they do is
what's a dunning letter?
Okay, what a debt collector is required to do under the FDCPA is they have to provide you, we call it a dunning letter or a validation notice, in which they have to provide the debt or the consumer with 30 days to dispute that debt. So, for instance, if you get an initial notice from a debt collector, it should say, unless you notify this office within 30 days that you dispute the validity of this debt, we will assume that it's valid and continue to collect on it. And within that 30-day time frame, the consumer is allowed to dispute the debt, and we would always advise them to dispute that debt because there may be charges in there that they don't know about that are trying to be collected. And you can also request verification from the debt collector, but you have to do that in written form. And,
Stuff happens. I mean, people, they lose loved ones, they lose their job. I mean, things happen where, bad things happen to good people. This is what I like to say. So if something like this has happened to you and you've had a collection, I would highly encourage you to hang on to these letters, even if you don't have the ability to pay them right now. Keep them in a file, keep them in a little plastic bin that you get from the dollar store. Keep them somewhere, because there may be a time when you're ready to settle that and you need to know where to start, and those letters will be important.
I completely agree with you 100%. I mean, it's all about documentation. Make sure you keep every letter that you get from a debt collector, because oftentimes there are violations in the actual letters that the unsophisticated consumer, and that's the standard, by the way, when you're pursuing a lawsuit against the debt collection agency, it's the unsophisticated consumer, whatever that person would think would be a violation. So, and a lot of unsophisticated consumers would not understand by looking at just a document that there would be a violation in that letter.
Well, I mean, some of these are, written in legal terms or written by their attorney. So, a lot of people are not going to be able to break down. The lay person may not be able to break down all the details, and they're not going to know what the fair debt collection practice laws are. So how does someone like that, how do you get paid? How do they retain you? Because I think a lot of people don't know that you make your money when you sue these guys.
Correct. And under the statute, what we do is we don't pay the consumer if they came to us with a particular issue with the collection agency. First, we would evaluate it to see if there is a violation, and if there is a violation, then we can engage in the representation of that consumer, and we wouldn't charge anything up front, no upfront fees or costs. The only way we win or we get paid is if we're successful in the lawsuit, and the debt collector pays us pursuant to the FDCPA.
So you guys work on a contingency agreement much like me. We only get paid once we've sold the home to a successful price, to the homeowner, the buyer's willing to pay. So you give an example or a story. Like a lot of times some of these are really small amounts, and then you guys go after these guys. What kind of punitive damages are you suing them for? Like what do you see?
Well, it's you're not. I guess you could sue them for punitive damages, but that's unlikely under these circumstances. I guess it's on a case-by-case basis, but what they're entitled to under the statute, or consumers, when I say they, what the consumer's entitled to is if there's a violation, is a statutory penalty of up to $1,000 or actual damages. So
that's pretty common that these collection agencies would violate the law. You guys would find the violation and you'd sue them for a $1,000 fine, which is within the law.
Correct. And that brings up a point that if I had my say in it, I would change the FDCPA because it was enacted back in 1977, and that $1,000 statutory penalty has remained the same up until today. And obviously the value of the $1,000 in today's economy is completely different than what it was in 1977.
Super different than the 70s, for sure.
Yeah. So I read somewhere that I thought it was about the current value of $1,000 back from 1977 is $3,500. So I'm a reasonable person. I would compromise and say, hey, let's cut it in the middle, do $2,500. But that's for another day here.
Well, inflation, everything goes up with inflation. The cost of your mortgage, your rent, your utilities, food, everything goes up with time. So if someone were to get a settlement, and there's often times where it is more than $1,000, correct?
That depends. If there's actual damages, I can bring up one case that we had where actually it was a mutual client of Laurie's. She sent it over to us, and this woman, she defaulted on a cable bill, and it was farmed out to a collection agency. And the collection agency reached out to this particular woman and said, hey, this is your balance. And the balance at that time was approximately about $320. So the woman, they got into a settlement agreement with the collection agency, and she agreed to pay $186. And what happened is they sent this particular woman a letter saying, hey, this is closing a debt. The account's closed. Basically you're free to go. It's off your credit report, etc.
So I'm going to chime in real quick and say, if you're a consumer and you settle a debt, keep that letter.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Definitely. Because this is what happened to her. So what happened is, she finds out later when she's actually, trying to purchase a home here in the Tampa area that particular debt was sold off to another collection agency after it had been satisfied. So she reaches out to this collection agency and says, the subsequent collection agency, and says, well, what's going on here? I've already satisfied this debt, and you need to remove this. She actually provided the letter from the original collection agency, but they still didn't remove it from her credit report. So that's where she came, or Laurie sent her over to us, and we actually had to file a lawsuit against both collection agencies because the first one should not have sold it to the subsequent collection agency.
You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. We're going to keep you on the hook for just a minute until we come back, and we're going to tell you how this whole story panned out and how it worked out in you, the consumer's favor. You won't want to miss how the story ended. This is Katrina Madewell. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk, and we'll be back in just a moment.
You've heard this before. Interest rates are at all-time record lows. But if your interest rate is 4% or above, you owe it to yourself to call Silverton Mortgage Specialist. Silverton is a direct lender, and the best part about this is that the entire loan process is handled in-house. From application to close, we do it all in the same building, which means that our loans close fast and our clients know what's going on every step of the way. Our contact info is located on TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show. What makes Silverton different? Products. We offer VA, FHA, USDA, and conventional loans pricing. Best rates with the lowest closing cost. Process everything in-house. It's handled right here and not outsourced to anyone that no one can reach. This way we can avoid surprises. Our people are simply the best, and we know you'll agree. What will closing Silverton Mortgage Specialist mean to you? A smooth process, real home loan value, and personal attention from real professionals. Silverton Mortgage Specialists are here to serve you. Visit TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show for all of our contact details. NMLS 109600 is an equal housing lender and Florida and Georgia residential mortgage licensee.
Hi, this is Aaron Davis, owner of Hillsborough Title. Hillsborough Title is a local, family-owned title agency here in Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. We've served Tampa Bay area for over 30 years. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Call us at 813-712-8888 or visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services. We're so glad that you're listening today, that we're offering you a special deal. If you're purchasing a home, you can have $50 off your full home inspection. And if you're already a client of ours, we're offering 10% off of any other service that we offer. Just give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
You're buying a house. Congratulations. So while you're worrying about the paperwork, leave the moving part to us. We're Woody & Sons Moving Company, a Florida licensed and insured mover, and we offer same-day written estimates. Plus, no sneaky mileage, stairs, or additional stop fees. All we ask is that you check out our great ratings on Google and Angie's List, then go to woodyandsons.com to learn more. Whether you need a full-service pack and move or some extra hands, at Woody & Sons Moving Company, we move you.
Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. Where we left off, Paul Fowkes from Disparti, Fowkes, and Hasanbasic was just sharing on collection rates, and he was sharing with a particular story in a client they had where the client actually had settled in a collection account with a utility company, and the utility company actually sold off the remaining part of that debt. And then when she went to buy a house, it came up. Do you want to continue where you left off, Paul?
Yeah, and I think I left off at the point where I said where we sued both of the collection agencies that were involved. First, the first collection agency that actually inherited the debt, if you will, from the original creditor, the utility company in this circumstance.
They're in trouble for collecting a debt that was settled.
Well, they were in trouble because they had no legal basis to sell that particular debt after it had been satisfied.
Oh, the initial creditor. Okay.
Yeah, the initial collection agency.
Okay.
So, because what happened is she got into an agreement with the initial collection agency, and they accepted, the payment that she received as full satisfaction of the debt. So this first collection agency turns around and sells it to a second collection agency when there was no debt.
So you guys went after both agencies.
Correct.
And what was the basis for the lawsuit?
That they had no legal basis to collect a debt that had already been satisfied.
And so how did that turn out for your particular client? And that might be just like someone listening right now.
It turned out wonderful for our client. I mean, we got her the statutory damages, and we actually got her...
statutory damages, what, the $1,000?
Correct.
Okay.
But in this circumstance, there were actual damages. I can't get into the terms and conditions of the settlement agreement because it was confidential.
Well, we're just kind of using a generic story.
Sure. I understand that. But we actually had them, the collection agency, delete they call it a trade line. The trade line is what they report on the credit report.
Right. It's the item that shows up.
Correct. And what we did is we had that deleted, and now, she was able to successfully buy a house. I mean, that served as a big impediment to her actually getting that house.
So did she actually receive more than the $1,000 settlement?
Yes, she did.
Okay. So I'm just going to make up a random number because I don't know what that is and you don't want to share, but let's say she received $5,000 or $10,000. And at this point, she's got $5,000 or $10,000 that now, Jerry, I think you can chime on this particular part.
Yes, Katrina, where we get involved as a CPA firm and tax consultants is, I like to call us the buck stops here. Client comes to us in January or February and says, hey, I've got this 1099 from the collection agency that actually paid him. And says,
so you've got $10,000 and at the end of the year you're getting a 1099 like you received income.
Yes, ma'am. And that is reportable. It may or may not be taxable. And it's the same situation as if you have a short sale, any kind of canceled debt. And one confusion a lot of my clients have, and they call me with questions, is if I don't get the 1099, do I have to report it? And the answer is yes, because a lot of times they might not send you one, or they send it to the wrong address, or it just gets lost. You still have to report the money. But go see your tax consultant, because there's some deductions a lot of times that you can take to negate the taxes on the income. But I do have clients every year who come in with these 1099s where they've gone to Laurie and Paul, people like them, and have been successful against the creditors who use these tactics that aren't allowed.
I guess the big takeaway is keep this stuff. Like in this day and age, we don't even have to keep paper. We can scan it and store it in places like Dropbox or Shoebox. I mean, I use Shoebox. I stuff all my receipts in there and mail them off, and they scan them in.
Person. There
I love Shoebox, and my accountant loves Shoebox. But what I want to share on is just basically, if you get to this place, don't forget that you need to keep this stuff. So a bigger point is, how do we catch these guys, Paul? Like if because obviously they want to record you, but if you tell them that you're recording them, they'll hang up, right?
That's oftentimes true, yes.
So how do we catch them in the act?
Well, it's a very valid point. What we do is we tell the actual consumer or our client to keep a diary of sorts, and what we call a collection log, and we provide this to the clients and consumers. When the call comes in, write down the date, the time, the name of the collector, the name of the company the collector's calling from, because they're required to give you this information, and the debt that they're trying to collect on, and what the debt collector says to you. I mean, be as detailed as possible, because it's often this he said, she said game. The debt collector does have a call log on their computer to show that that particular call was made, but oftentimes they don't actually put in what was actually said.
So if you have a call log that kind of jives with a time frame that matches up, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be believable because you have more documentation than they do.
Most definitely, and it comes down to credibility for sure.
Now, Disparti Fowkes and Hasanbasic has already put together this call log, and they've offered to share it with our listeners here at Tampa Home Talk. So if you want to reach out to us, we will give you this call log. And then when you're ready to be connected with them or someone else, let us know. You can reach us at 813-377-2775. And again, our off-air number is 813-377-2775. You can call us or text us at that number, and we can get you connected with our guests here in the studio or anyone that you may have heard on a prior show. So most of these, they pan out pretty well, right? Or you guys at least educate the consumer, educate the person listening what to look for the violation so you know where to help them.
Yes, definitely. And there's other one thing I did leave out there, the third category of the FDCPA. We didn't get into talking about that, but it's when the debt collector contacts, friends or families, a third party, without that particular consumer's consent. That would be a violation. What they're entitled to do is they can call a third party and ask for location information, but they can't talk specifically about that consumer's debt. That would most certainly be a violation right there. And that happens a lot. We get that a lot of the time.
I've heard of that too. I've heard people calling, their mother, brother, sister, somebody with a common last name.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how these people look them up and find their family members, but they do. So one thing we didn't touch on yet is, are they allowed to call your cell phone? Are they allowed to call you during working hours? And how do you stop that if it's invading your workspace and possibly threatening your job?
Well, they're allowed to call you on your cell phone for certain. But if you tell them, look, I'm working at this time, please don't call this particular number during the business hours. And if they do call, then arguably that would be considered a violation because they are contacting you at work. So that, there are certain things they're required to do. And, once a collection agency receives like a cease and desist letter, they only can contact that particular consumer once, and it has to be via mail, to tell them that they're not going to collect anymore or that they're going to carry out certain remedies. So that's the only way that they can actually communicate after that cease and desist is sent to or communicated to the debt collector.
There's a whole bunch of things that you need to know, and I swear, I think we could talk about this for another hour. But if you have someone that's harassing you or they're calling you, and you want them to stop and you need some help with this, please reach out to us. We're happy to connect you with these guys and give you the information and a consultation at no cost, just to see what your rights are and see what you can do to protect yourself and get through this situation. You can reach us at 813-377-2775. That's our off-air number. And I'd like to end our show on a joke, and I think Paul had a pretty good one for us today. It's relative to today's show.
Well, yeah, I have a client who's a very good client of ours. He said to me that a collector called him and said, hey, look, you got to make payment with interest. So he didn't make payment, and then he got subsequent calls from the collector, and when the collector called him and actually spoke with him again, he said, well, why didn't you make payment? And the consumer, my client, said you had to pay with interest. And since I have no interest in paying you, I thought that meant let it go. So, I thought it was pretty funny.
I thought that was a great joke and very timely for our show. Thanks for listening to Tampa Home Talk. And if you miss any part of today's show, we'd love for you to check it out on the web or via a podcast at Tampa Home Talk. This is your host, Katrina Madewell, and we are out.
Tarpon Springs High School football is on the Tan Talk Radio Network. Tune in Friday nights to hear all the hits and excitement of high school football. Join play-by-play man Rick Sassone every Friday night, bringing you the action of Spongers football. Pregame starts at 7:05, and the game action starts at 7:30. Tune in Friday nights here on Tan Talk 1340 so you don't miss a snap. Tarpon Springs High School football is on Tan Talk 1340 Friday nights, so get in the game.
Are you looking for some great restaurants? For some great wines? Where are the great chefs? Listen to Dine Out Radio, heard every Wednesday on the Tan Talk Radio Network. 12 to 1 p.m., we'll tell you where all the great events are. We'll have Food and Wine Magazine and Bon Appetit Magazine. We'll have their editors and writers on each month. And maybe we'll throw in a couple surprises. Check out the website, diningoutradio.com.
My bridges all.
And we got Mama J in here. She's going to be doing a new show called Mama J Speaks.
Yes, tune in Thursdays at 8 p.m. I am going to be massaging your hearts, massaging your minds, bringing laughter to your souls as I share stories with people from many walks of life, connecting, and playing some music in between.
Mama J Speaks, Thursday nights at 8 p.m., only on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Tom O'Brien is on the Tan Talk Radio Network. Every Monday through Friday from 4 till 5 p.m., Tom takes to the airwaves as he breaks down the day's market action. Tom combines his technical knowledge of the markets with his years of trading experience to take your calls and questions every market day from 4 to 5 p.m. Whether you're new to trading or an active day trader, don't miss out on the Tom O'Brien Show live on the Tan Talk Radio Network from 4 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Frozen. In that instant when the puck appears in the back of the net. In that moment when jaws open in astonishment. In that second, everything stands still. But the next second, you are the energy that shatters the stillness. The Tampa Bay Lightning. Be the Thunder.
Lightning single game tickets are on sale now. Visit TampaBayLightning.com or call 800-745-3000.
From the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay's Tan Talk. Imus in the morning.
Please welcome now to the Imus in the morning program, former Beatle Ringo Starr. Morning, Ringo.
Well, sit on me Facebook and tell me that you love me. I haven't seen a stock fail like that since the Maharishi tried to open a chain of hamburger restaurants in Calcutta. I knew those shares were going to go down quicker than Joseph Abood on Betty Davis night at the Ramrod, but I haven't been this happy since Michael Jackson stole the rights to Yesterday. Should have been a rubber glove, not sequins, the way Jacko gave Paulie a prostate massage on that one. But in the long run, it ultimately doesn't make that much difference. Even if Facebook drops so low, it's not even worth wiping your bum with it. Zuckerberg will still have enough money left in his couch cushions to finance a space program. Paul will still own the publishing to Wipeout by the Safaris and get a check every time somebody flushes a toilet. But there's still a chance for growth, and you can increase your chances for growth with Extigen Male Enhancement Tablets. Give your woman a long and winding road to sexual satisfaction.
You're selling male enhancement products?
Catch Imus in the morning right here.
Hi, this is Prior Smith speaking from Toronto, with an invitation to all vacationing Canadians throughout Central Florida to join me here on Tan Talk for Canada Calling, a daily update of news from home each day, Monday through Saturday at 9 a.m. and 12 noon. That's Canada Calling, a 61-year listening tradition, coast to coast in Florida. Tell your friends and neighbors to join us each day, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. and 12 noon for Canada Calling, here on the Tan Talk Network.
Tune in to the book club with John Austin.
Well, I actually taught public speaking, as you probably know, in college for 7-8 years.
You could ask the questions and answer them yourself. I could just sit here.
You ask terrific questions, you listen, and it's just a joy to work with you.
Well, I love
go on the road, you know?
Right, well, I'd be happy to. And
you may not be able to go on the road, but don't worry, we bring the book club to you every Tuesday at noon, right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Fall is here. Got trash? Garage cleanouts? Remodeling your home or office? Bill Cochran Hauling and Trailer Drop-Off hauls anything. Call 727-251-7209 for free estimates and prompt, courteous service. Serving Pinellas County since 2001, Bill Cochran Hauling does it all with same-day service. Call Bill Cochran Hauling for a free quote today at 727-251-7209. That's 727-251-7209.
Are you looking for a job? Join me, Gene Hodge, on the Employment Opportunity Hour, Thursdays from 7 to 8 p.m., where I will tell you and share with you, as well as answer all of your questions and help you find enjoyable employment instead of a job. This is the only talk show that talks about everyone who makes up our workforce. Join me on the Employment Opportunity Hour every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. on the Employment Opportunity Hour.
Have you ever had the desire to do something adventurous, exciting, fun, delicious, or suspicious, and don't know why or when it hit you? Well, now you'll know. 441-3311. Yes, you'll hear it right here on your own local radio station. 1340 AM. You can shout your message to the world. Hear it on its highest note. Get people to come to your business, enjoy your services or goods, and the good news is it's affordable. Call 441-3311 for the fun of it. That's 727-441-3311. And, oh, by the way, my name is Lola.